I was halfway through signing a new contract when my phone buzzed on the glass desk beside me. The name flashing on the screen made my hand freeze mid-signature.
Mom.
For a second, I thought my eyes were playing tricks. It had been 3 years since we last spoke, and even then, our conversation ended with her telling me that her new family didn't need my negativity. But here she was, calling me in the middle of a Tuesday morning while I sat in my downtown Chicago office, wearing a silk cream blouse and the kind of confidence I once had to fake. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice came through the speaker, trembling. "Madison, I need your help." The way she said my name, like it hurt to say it, sent a chill through me. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. "What's wrong, Mom?" "It's Robert," she said, her words breaking. He took everything. The savings, the house money. $80,000 gone." I blinked slowly, processing the name. Robert. Her perfect husband. The man she chose over me. The man who called me ungrateful when I questioned him. Now he'd vanished, and suddenly, I was worth calling again. My assistant knocked gently on the door, reminding me of the meeting waiting down the hall. But all I could hear was my mother's uneven breathing on the phone. "Please, Madison," she whispered. "I don't know what to do." I looked at my reflection in the darkened glass. Steady eyes, flawless lipstick, a woman who built everything alone. For years, she hadn't wanted me in her life. Now she was begging me to save it. I was 21 when my mother first introduced me to Robert. He wore expensive cologne and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The kind of man who filled every room with confidence, but somehow made me feel small just by standing there. Mom looked radiant that night, like she'd finally found her happy ending. She held his arm like he was her lifeline. "Madison, sweetheart," she said brightly, "this is Robert. He's been such a blessing." I remember extending my hand, forcing a polite smile. His grip was too firm. "I've heard a lot about you," he said. "Your mom tells me you're still figuring things out." Still figuring things out. The word stung. I had just started my second job to pay for night classes, but in his tone, I was a burden. Over the next few months, Robert slowly began taking over our home. The dinners, the finances, even the conversations. He'd correct my mother in front of me, then kiss her cheek like it was all a joke. When I tried to talk to her about it, she brushed it off. "You're overreacting, Maddie. He just wants what's best for us." But us started to mean them, not me. The final blow came one night when Robert accused me of stealing from his wallet, a ridiculous lie. I'd never forget the way my mom looked at me, torn but silent. I waited for her to defend me, to say she knew her daughter better than that. Instead, she whispered, "Maybe it's best if you find your own place for a while." I packed my things that night, hands shaking so badly I could barely zip my suitcase. Before leaving, I paused at Grandma June's old dresser, the one thing Mom hadn't sold after she passed. Inside was a small silver locket with a note tucked inside. "Strength isn't loud, sweetheart. It's steady." I clutched that locket like it was oxygen. Outside, the night air was cold and heavy, but I didn't cry. I just stood on the curb, watching the porch light flicker, realizing I was truly on my own. As I walked away, I whispered to myself, I'll never ask her for anything again. And I didn't. Not for a very, very long time. The first few months after leaving home were brutal. I rented a tiny studio apartment above a laundromat, where the smell of detergent clung to everything I owned. The walls were thin enough to hear my neighbor's television through the night, and the radiator hissed like it had secrets. I worked mornings at a coffee shop and evenings as a receptionist at a small accounting firm, barely keeping up with bills or sleep. But I held on to that silver locket like a lifeline. Every time exhaustion crept in, I'd open it and read Grandma June's words again. Strength isn't loud, sweetheart. It's steady. That steadiness became my anchor. At the accounting firm, I used to file papers for hours, but I watched and learned how the ledgers balanced, how numbers told stories, how clients trusted the ones who could find patterns in chaos. One night, when my boss forgot an important spreadsheet for a meeting, I stayed after hours and redid the entire report from scratch. He didn't even ask me to. The next morning, he called me into his office. "You did this?" he asked, eyebrows raised. I nodded, nervous. He smiled for the first time since I'd met him. "Madison, you have a real eye for this. You should think about getting certified." It was the first time in years someone believed in me, without conditions. I enrolled in online finance courses, studying between shifts. My fingertips were always ink-stained, my eyes red, but every small step felt like defiance. Within 2 years, I earned my certification, and he promoted me to junior accountant. Life didn't suddenly become easy, but it became mine. A few years later, when that same boss retired, he recommended me for his position. I hesitated, me, a manager? But I remembered the way Robert had once smirked and called me, just a girl with opinions. So I took the job. The paychecks got bigger. The apartment did, too. I stopped worrying about groceries and started planning investments. When social media updates from my mother popped up, vacations with Robert, smiling couple photos, new house keys, I'd scroll past them with a faint ache. She looked happy, and I told myself that was enough. I never posted much myself. No luxury photos, no career milestones. I didn't need anyone's validation, especially hers. My success was quiet, like Grandma's words. Eventually, I founded my own consultancy firm, Carter Financial Strategies, named after myself, not out of pride but out of ownership. My clients were CEOs, small business owners, single mothers trying to rebuild. I helped them all. But even with the new office, the city view, the tailored suits, there were nights I sat alone, tracing the edges of that locket, wondering if my mother ever missed me. Then one day, a client mentioned a man named Robert who'd been running some shady investment pitches in the suburbs. I laughed it off at the time. It couldn't be the same one, right? Until today. Until her voice, trembling through the phone, begging me to save her from the man she once chose over me. I agreed to meet her the next afternoon, against every instinct screaming at me not to. She chose a small diner off the interstate, the kind of place where time hadn't caught up, where the smell of burnt coffee and syrup hung in the air. When I walked in, she was already there, sitting in a corner booth, her hands wrapped tightly around a mug that had probably gone cold. For a moment, I didn't recognize her. The confident, polished woman I remembered had been replaced by someone smaller, shoulders hunched, eyes rimmed red. Her hair, once carefully styled, was streaked with gray and pulled into a loose bun. "Madison," she breathed, standing awkwardly as I approached. "Mom," I said softly, sliding into the seat across from her. Her eyes darted around the diner, like she didn't know where to start. "You look incredible," she finally said, her voice trembling. "So grown up. So successful." I smiled politely. "Life's been busy." She swallowed hard. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "Robert, he wasn't who I thought he was. He told me he had a business deal lined up. I trusted him. And then, one morning, he was gone. The accounts were empty. My savings, my retirement, everything." I stirred my coffee slowly, the spoon clinking against the mug. $80,000, I said. Her lips parted. "How did you? You mentioned it yesterday." I met her eyes. "Funny how life circles back, isn't it?" She flinched. "I know what you're thinking. I deserve it. Maybe I do. But, Madison, I'm going to lose the house. I don't know what else to do." I leaned back, studying her. The waitress passed by with a refill, and the sound of sizzling bacon filled the silence. "Mom," I said finally, "when you asked me to leave, I had $42 in my bank account and nowhere to go. You didn't even ask where I'd stay." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I was trying to keep peace in the house." "You were trying to keep him happy," I interrupted, my tone calm but steady. "And I get it. You thought he'd save you. Now you want me to." She looked down at her trembling hands. "I didn't know what he was. I thought he loved me." My throat tightened, not out of sympathy, but recognition. Love had made her blind, and pride had kept her from seeing the truth. "Mom," I said quietly, "I'm not that scared girl you sent away anymore. I run a financial consulting firm downtown. I advise corporations, manage portfolios, and handle fraud cases, just like this one. I could help you legally, financially, but not if you keep pretending you didn't choose this. She blinked at me, her jaw trembling. You run a firm? I nodded. Carter Financial Strategies. My company. For a moment, she was completely still. Her eyes scanned me. The watch, the tailored blazer, the calm authority in my posture. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. You did all that without me? I had to, I said simply. The realization settled over her face like a slow dawn. Shame, awe, regret all tangled together. She reached across the table, her hand trembling. Madison, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have protected you. I stared at her hand for a long time before placing mine gently over it. You don't have to apologize, Mom. You just have to understand that I can't go back to being the daughter you dismissed. Not anymore. She nodded slowly, tears spilling over. Then let me be the mother who finally learns. Outside, the wind rattled the diner's old windows. I looked at her, truly looked, and saw not the woman who abandoned me, but someone finally broken enough to start over. All right, I said, exhaling softly. We'll talk about what comes next, but on my terms. The following week, I met her again, this time in my office. The contrast was startling. She walked in timidly, glancing around at the high ceilings, glass walls, and the panoramic city view that used to be my dream. My name, Madison Carter, CEO, gleamed in silver letters across the wall behind my desk. I caught her eyes flicker over it before she looked down, clutching her purse like a shield. Please sit, I said gently. She lowered herself into the chair, her shoulders rounded. You have a beautiful office, she murmured. You've really made it. I sat across from her, hands folded, steady. You said Robert took $80,000. I've reviewed the financials you sent me. I can help trace the transfers and start legal proceedings, but before I do, I paused, watching her face tighten. There are a few conditions. Conditions, she repeated softly. Yes. I leaned forward slightly. First, you need to report him. No excuses, no protecting him out of guilt. You let him go once. You can't let him keep taking from you, or from anyone else. Her lip trembled. I was scared of what people would think. Then start caring about what you think, I said firmly. Second, therapy. Real therapy. You need to understand why you let someone like him in, why you kept choosing people who made you feel small. I'll even pay for the sessions, but only if you show up. Tears glistened in her eyes. Madison, you sound so much like your grandmother right now. That made me smile just a little. She's where I learned it. I opened a folder and slid a small card toward her, a printed list of community legal aid numbers, financial counselors, and a therapist I trusted. Third, I continued, you rebuild your life on your own terms. I'll help stabilize things temporarily, clear your immediate debts, but after that, you start over. No shortcuts, no dependence. She nodded, crying silently. You're right. I need to. I never realized how much I hurt you. I took a breath, steady but soft. I don't want an apology, Mom. I want change. For both of us. The office fell silent except for the hum of the city outside. She reached across the table again, this time not to beg, but to take the card with shaking hands. I'll do it, she whispered. All of it. Good, I said, standing. Because this isn't just about the money anymore. It's about breaking the cycle. She looked up at me with a small, fragile smile. You really became everything I hoped you'd be. I turned toward the window, the skyline glowing with the late afternoon sun. No, I said quietly. I became everything you didn't believe I could be, and somehow, that's what saved us both. Months passed, and for the first time in years, peace didn't feel like a foreign language. Mom kept every promise. She reported Robert to the authorities, sat through hours of questioning, and started therapy twice a week. At first, her messages to me were cautious, polite updates about court hearings and finances. But slowly, they became something warmer. She began talking about books she was reading, the flowers she planted in her small rented apartment, the women she'd met in her support group. Every update carried a little more light. Sometimes she'd slip and call me for advice, the old habit surfacing, but she always caught herself. "You know what, I'll figure it out," she'd say with a laugh. And for the first time, she actually meant it. One Saturday, she stopped by my office again, not to ask for help, but to bring a small box. "I wanted you to have this," she said, setting it on my desk. Inside was Grandma June's silver locket, the one I'd kept all those years. But she had restored it, polished it until it gleamed. Inside, she'd added a folded note of her own. "Strength isn't loud. It's steady, and it's yours now, Madison." For a long time, neither of us spoke. The city lights shimmered against the glass, and for the first time, I didn't see the woman who had chosen someone else over me. I saw a woman who had finally chosen herself. We hugged, awkwardly at first, then fiercely. Her tears dampened my shoulder, and I let mine fall too. Not out of pain but release. Later that night, I stood by my window, the skyline pulsing with quiet energy. I thought about the girl who once packed her life into a single suitcase and walked away into the cold. She'd built something solid out of nothing, and somehow found her way back, not to the past, but to peace. The locket rested in my palm, cool and familiar. I pressed it against my heart and whispered to the city below, "Strength isn't loud, Grandma. It's steady, and it runs in our blood." Mom and I would never be perfect, but maybe we didn't need to be. We'd learned that love wasn't about rescuing each other. It was about standing on our own and still choosing to meet halfway. I smiled, closing the locket with a soft click. She once chose a man who took everything from her. I chose myself, and that saved us both. Bottom of form.